best that you clicked on this video because you saw the title and you went, "Aw, crap. What if that's me?" Oh no, that's me. You know what? In fact, a lot of you saw the title for the video and you were like, "Oh God, that's me." So welcome. We have problems. Okay, right off the bat, in order to be addicted to sacral energy, you have to be a non-sacral person. You either have to be a projector, a reflector, or a manifester. Projectors suffer from this definitely the worst because we are a true non-energy type and we are the most open and susceptible to conditioning by the other. So this is a support video for anyone who's non-sacral who might be addicted to sacral, but I'm definitely going to come out hitting the hardest for anybody who is a projector. So let's figure out if you might be addicted to sacral. You might be addicted to sacral if you can't come up with any good reason why you shouldn't be sleeping with a generator, whether they're your partner, whether they're your kid, your pet. I'm not too sure how many other people or relationship styles you might be sleeping with. But if you cannot come up with an answer as to why you shouldn't be sleeping with them, you keep justifying all these reasons why you should continue to sleep with them, you might be addicted to sacral. You might be addicted to sacral if, as soon as you get the opportunity to be alone, you are immediately going out of the house to be in groups of people. You are immediately calling someone to hang out with you. You are immediately bringing someone into your space. Like one of my giveaways where I was like, oh, I definitely have some lessons to learn. I definitely have some deconditioning to do. You know, my son, Maven, manifesting generator, he's here half the time. Now, when he's here and I feel overstimulated, I have these moments of like, it'll be really nice when I'm back to being alone so I can regulate, so I can decondition. But when Maven leaves, and one of the first things that I want to do was, you know, run to my neighbor's house to play with her MG baby, that's a sign that I might be addicted to sacral. If as soon as I get my free space, I'm wondering how I can go get more stimulation, I might be addicted to sacral. If I think that I have a really high sex drive and that I could have sex every day or that I need to have sex every day, I might be addicted to sacral. If I'm the last one at an event, if I'm the last one at a party, if I'm the lingering one on a date, like going late into the evening, if I am having a hard time separating and taking time to go regulate myself, I might be addicted to sacral. If I keep coming up with a bunch of reasons why I can't quit the job that I truly do not have energy for, I might be addicted to sacral. If I believe in pushing a hustle mentality and I have a negative association with words like rest, recovery, downtime, even play, if I'm looking down on those qualities, but then also putting other qualities like hustle culture on a pedestal, I might be addicted to sacral. If I'm willing to get into a relationship either because the sex is good or someone just wants to have sex with me, I might be addicted to sacral. If all of my friends are sacral beings, I might be addicted to sacral. If I start to think that being stimulated is the same thing or the equivalent to feeling good, I'm probably addicted to sacral. If I personally am trying to get in aura with a generator who has not recognized and invited me, huge red flag that I am addicted to sacral. I've been there. It sucks. Currently not there, thank goodness, but ugh. All right, so what's so bad about being addicted to sacral? Why is this not something that you want? I mean, right off the bat, when we talk about addiction is a strong word. And ultimately, like, you know, if they say one of the first steps in addiction is recognizing that you have a problem, what it gives me is the awareness right off the bat that we don't choose to become addicted to things. We don't choose to give away our power to something. You have to wake up and recognize, uh-oh, I've become addicted to something. So why do we get addicted to sacral? Okay, sacral beings are between 65 and 70% of the population. It's borderline impossible to go out into the world and participate in life without being overwhelmed, statistically dominated by sacral energy. Now, there's so many different directions I can take this conversation. It's not going to be particularly mechanical. You're going to have to understand a little bit about mechanics in order to get value out of this video. But if you're a non-sacral person, you are already at a minority, okay? So everywhere you go, you're automatically being overwhelmed, conditioned, and overstimulated. But when you are little and this is how you grow up, you don't have awareness necessarily that this is wrong. You might have awareness that, like, I have, you know, resistance to something, or this feels uncomfortable for me, but I don't necessarily understand why. You know, let's say little non-sacral kid comes home from school and they have spent hours away in a heavily sacral environment. There is this expectation that, like, all kids are the same, or kids have natural energy, or kids should go out and play, but a non-sacral kid that comes home from school is going to be exhausted. But how often is that recognized? And how often are they encouraged to actually go rest, recover, you know, get whatever replenishment they need, allow themselves to go into a place of not being overstimulated? What if we were able to recognize, recalibrate, and regulate kids' nervous systems, right? We would start to create that awareness sooner that being overstimulated, dysregulated isn't natural, isn't the ideal, and that there are ways that they can work with this. A lot of the conditioning starts before school. You know, I was a projector raised by 2 generator parents. I was overstimulated right off the bat, you know, and that open and enveloping aura that the generator has feels like a warm, loving embrace. And so many of us, we grow up confusing the idea of what love or nurturing is with the idea of receiving sacral energy, or with a sacral being positively responding to us and taking us into their aura. So from the get-go, we're not prepared to look at these things like, oh no, sacral addiction, don't get too comfortable with this, it's not who you are. Instead, we're like, this is what it feels like to be welcomed by people, this is what it is to be accepted by my peers, or to have, like, to feel like my parents love me. Like, there's so much in what the generator energy is that makes us feel good, right? Like, all things that we can become addicted to, they make us feel good in some kind of way, or they wouldn't be addictive. There's something in us that goes, ooh, I like that. But the problem becomes when we get dependent on something. When we become like, I need that versus I want that, that's where it starts to become a problem. There are lots of things that are normal and acceptable, but it doesn't make them healthy. Now, good is a word that I have mixed feelings on. I don't like good or bad. I don't like the moral component to it. And yet I recognize that gate 26 in my ego, the gate of the best, like, I'm not looking for good. I am, however, looking to see what is the best of something. And egos are very willpower based. I have a lot of willpower. In fact, my perspective on addiction personally is, you know, I'm a little bit privileged in my definition, in that if spleen and ego together say this isn't healthy, it's time to quit, I have the power in that motor to be able to do that. And the reason that I want to quit something is because there's this awareness in me that I have the will to have something better, and I'm not going to get the better thing unless I let go of the inferior thing. So in my willingness to question myself and go, shit, am I addicted to sacral? Or when am I addicted to sacral? Or when is this creating a problem for me? Or where historically has this been a problem for me? I have a willingness to look at this and release any of the addiction there, not because I think it's bad, but because I'm curious what it's going to be replaced with. I'm curious what the better or best alternative is. If I have lived a life that has made me unconsciously relatively codependent with sacral energy, but in a non-healthy way, right? Like there's nothing wrong with using sacral energy, and we are meant to be in communion. We are meant to be of a benefit to each other. No sacral energy, and I'll be honest, life would be very boring, very, very dull, and a lot of us would would die. Lots of things would die, right? Like the sacral represents life, it represents growth, it represents fertility. We need it. But there are a lot of times where we abuse things that we need. You know, we also need food to live. But it's very easy to abuse your relationship with food. The relationship can become distorted, unhealthy, especially when you're using one thing to cope with another thing. And when we're dealing with sacral addiction, when it becomes unhealthy is when you're using it to mask or cope with something else. And the core of this is going to be the fact that you don't like yourself, and you certainly don't love yourself. A way to gain awareness on how much you love yourself, if you wanted to measure how much you love yourself, the way to do that would be to see how interested you are in what you're not. How much do you push to be what you aren't? As in, how much does your not self get away from you and try and tell you that you need to be what you're not, you need to improve yourself, you need to change yourself, you need access to something that you can't have? Like, these are manipulation tools from the not self, and the not self is only strong when you don't love who you are. It's only easy for you to be taken advantage of when you don't like what you are. Now, we have very, very deep biological drives to procreate with things that are very different from us. Genetic imperative, you know, this need to reproduce. The healthiest offsprings that we make are kids that are born from parents that are not the same as each other. The more different two things are, honestly, the better immune system that their kids are going to have, the better chance for survival and viability. But we're not talking about like a kid in particular. We're talking about like the entire globalized gene pool. Like, our ability to survive as a species and to continue to evolve is so much based on the fact that we diversify. You know, if a family is only breeding with its own bloodline, that goes pretty wrong pretty quickly. So it is not a negative thing that we have been driven to mix with, you know, our opposites, our binaries. However, genetic imperative isn't the point of our existence anymore. We made a very globalized gene pool. We're very well populated. In fact, we might be a little overpopulated at this point. Let's look at electromagnetic attraction for a second. When you get in aura with someone who has the other side of one of your channels, you have a hanging gate, they have a hanging gate, together you make the channel. It makes an electromagnetic attraction. They function like magnets, you know, simultaneously attractive and also repellent. Now, what attracts in the beginning is like, ooh, you're different. Ooh, I can access this thing through you. And that is going to help drive people to create things, you know, genetic imperative, mix the genes. Ooh, like that'll get people, you know, a lot of the time, It'll take them to the sex level. But if you mix sex into a relationship and you try and maintain that relationship, if you want that relationship to have longevity, it's really interesting watching what was originally an attraction become a bit of a repellent once something has happened. You know, there's the, ooh, you're different from me. You end up in bed, you end up making a baby, but then the baby comes, and suddenly the fact that, you know, the partner that you made this baby with is so different from you, that's no longer an attraction. It's actually become more of an annoyance. The same thing that was like, ooh, I like this, now becomes like, that's bothering me, take it away. I really, really connected with some of what Ra was saying when he talked about, you know, you can get two very different people together to make a baby, but can you get those two different people to stay together once genetic imperative has served its function? I laughed because, you know, when Maven was 3 or 4 years, when he just turned 4, it was the weekend after Maven's 4th birthday, I think, I looked at my now ex-husband and said, I want a divorce. You know, the thing that brought us together, once we had the child, I didn't really have a drive to be with this person anymore. I became more and more aware over time in our relationship how I wasn't me in that relationship. I wasn't me in many, many ways. And so then there becomes this question of, well, what am I? And, you know, what do I want? And like, what motivated me to be with this person? And I didn't know anything about human design at the time. And, you know, my son's father is a manifesting generator. And I shared a room with him. Like, I was still co-sleeping at that point. And I can see so many ways now where I'm like, I was never alone. I was either with my ex-husband, or I was with my son, or I was with my neighbor, or I was taking care of another baby. Like, I was always in aura with a sacral being, and I was completely exhausted. And I thought it was my fault. You know, what's interesting is you can be completely stimulated by sacral energy, and then you go out and you look for other stimulants because you don't understand what's happening. You know, if I'm drinking 4 cups of caffeinated coffee every day and I'm, you know, holding a generator baby, like, there are some red flags that should be getting my attention. You know, the not self theme of the sacral center is never knowing when enough is enough. You don't know when enough's enough. Now, in theory, if you love yourself and you are a non-sacral being, if you love yourself, then you love that you are non-sacral. You don't hate the fact that you're not generating life force energy. You're not masking the fact that you're not creating life force energy. You're not pretending to be a generator. You're not stuck in the hustle. If you love yourself as a non-sacral, then you love deconditioning your sacral center. You love learning, I've done enough. And when you've done enough, what do you do with yourself? If you are, you know, trying to rest in whatever way that looks like for you, but your brain just says, you need to be working, you need to be working, you need to be creating, you need to be doing, you need to be doing, you don't have any value. You don't love yourself that much. You know, you might be working on it, but you don't love yourself that much if you can't turn that off, because you're going to immediately start trying to become a generator. You're going to work when you shouldn't be working. You're going to spend time with people that don't actually make you feel good, that make you feel overstimulated. You're probably going to be having a lot more sex than what actually feels good for you, or what you actually want, or what you actually need. I'd like to suggest an experiment for you if you think you might be addicted to sacral, or if you want to find out how addicted you are. Try and be alone. Watch yourself. Be alone in some way and see whether or not you have this urge to go be with people. Like, do you consistently tell yourself, like, I need to go to town, or I need to go to this event, or I need to go to this person's house, or I need to get together with a friend. Like, how long can you be alone? And in that time of being alone, what are the narratives that you start to hear about why you should go be with someone else, or why you should go be with a group, or why you should go look for a relationship, or why you should go look for a partner, or why you should start a collaboration with somebody, or even just like going to the grocery store to stand in the checkout line is a way to get sacral energy. How quickly do you try and source that energy? And when you aren't getting it from places that feel really good, how quickly are you willing to lower your standards so that you can still go have access to it? Ugh, that one's a doozy. One of the things that I want to clarify before this video ends is that not all sacrals are created equal, and certainly not all sacral beings are in good places with their response, with their signature. When you go near a sacral being, you're either going to take in satisfaction or you're going to take in frustration. If you are admitting to yourself, I might be addicted to sacral, I also want you to be honest with yourself about what the quality of those sacral beings is. I used to be much more interested in hanging out with generator adults. I can tell that I was in a worse place of my sacral addiction when I was spending a lot of time with generator adults and not ones that were satisfied, ones that were complaining, they were frustrated, they were in more of a like depressive kind of place. And I'm not sure what I was getting out of it. I think very low grade attention, and that was what I had access to, and that's what I accepted at the time. But throughout my work in human design, not only am I better at shifting the sacrals around me, like when they recognize and invite me to guide them, obviously my goal is to guide them to a place of satisfaction. It feels better for them and it feels better for me. Now, also a lot of what happened, I'm no longer married. I don't live with a frustrated adult generator. I live with one sacral child and part-time. It is easier to get kids to be satisfied because they have a natural drive in them that says they only want to use their energy for what they want to use it for anyway. And they'll be like, whatever, to things that frustrate them. They want to give up on that, right? And that's correct for them to quit things that are like, ew, no, this is, draining me. It's easier to get good quality, satisfied sacral from kids, from younger kids. And one of the things that I noticed was over the last few years, I shifted to really preferring to spend time with generator kids versus generator adults. I find that the quality of satisfaction that I'm able to get from them, like I'm literally, as a projector, I'm like feeding off of this sacral, right? It's a form of nourishment. I have to amplify this. I would much rather amplify positive, satisfied sacral energy. I am no longer willing to amplify frustrated energy just so I can get some low-grade attention out of it. I don't want any type of attention, certainly not low-grade. I want recognition, right? I want genuine recognition, invitation, compensation. I have no interest in putting myself in a place where I'm going to be absorbing frustrated sacral. I have no want to amplify that. So there is this level of discernment of, yeah, I'm still addicted to sacral. I think that this will be like a lifelong addiction. And addictions don't necessarily mean that I'm participating in something, right? Like, you can have an alcoholic who hasn't had a drink in 12 years and they're still going to call themselves an alcoholic because they are aware of their tendencies. They're aware of their weaknesses. As a non-sacral being, we have weaknesses and tendencies to want to go get that life force energy. And I'm not going to say that it's like a terrible thing, you know, like we're meant to be in communion. But there can definitely be different, like, I want to say qualities. It's almost like, you know, I'm looking for that like fresh pressed organic sacral versus a pop. You know, like I want the healthy, juicy, vibrant, true self satisfaction. Like if I'm gonna be addicted to that and that's gonna be my source, like I want it to be a really great source. But I'm also aware of, as long as I look for that as if it's a gap in me, you know, as long as I'm trying to ignore who I am and how I function, and I'm very drawn to something that's not me, something that's different from me, I'm not ever actually going to hit my own potential as a non-sacral being. If I'm consistently addicted to sacral, it's really just showing me that I want to be sacral. And if that's what I want to be, then it's telling me that I don't want to be what I am. And in my case, it's a projector. You know, when you love what you are, you're willing to go to bat for the things that keep you what you are. If I love being a projector, then I'm going to do what's necessary to like protect and guard those aspects of myself. I will never be a totally successful projector if I'm consistently co-sleeping with a generator. That's not me loving myself enough to ask to have my needs met, my own deconditioning needs met. If I'm not taking time to turn back into myself every day, that's a sign to me that I must not really love myself that much. And that's going to be really, really hard for some people to hear. But it's only hard because it's true. If you tell me, I love co-sleeping with a generator, and I love being at work all day with generators, and I love being in my house with a whole bunch of generator kids, I love this, I don't feel conditioned, I don't feel addicted. But what I'm not hearing is that you ever actually are alone. That tells me it's not that you love sacral, it's that you have no idea who you actually are, how you feel, what makes you feel regulated. If you're never alone, then it's not you who has an opinion on what I'm saying. If you're never alone, then the only part of you that can be offended by what I'm saying is your not self. And that thing gets offended at everything. I'm not going to take it personal. Awareness can be really, really, really uncomfortable. It's why the phrase ignorance is bliss is a real and common phrase. If you have no interest in waking up to the truth of who you are, that's okay. If you want to go through your non-sacral life addicted to sacral and in your opinion blissfully asleep, that's okay. You know, only 4% of 4% is what we're told has the potential to actually wake up to who they are. You don't wake up to who you are unless you think that there's a possibility that you might love who you are. If you're never alone, my question is, what are you afraid of? Why do you consistently need people around you? What are you getting out of this? In particular, what aspect of who you really are you not having to deal with because you're always in the company of other people? If you don't ever want to be alone, what are you afraid that you're gonna uncover about yourself? I think the number one fear that prevents people from separating from their sacral addiction is that they've gotten these lives that are completely enmeshed with and reliant on sacral energy. If you've made a whole life where, you know, you feel locked into a generator family, a generator relationship, generator friends, generator parents, generator colleagues, then the fear is that you're going to have to lose all of those things, and the loss of those things is going to feel worse than the sacral overstimulation currently does. I don't know what your narratives are. I don't know what comes up for you when you think about taking time alone or taking space from the sacral people in your life that, you know, you seem like you can't get enough of. I don't know what comes up for you. I'm hoping that after watching this video, you're just willing to try. You're willing to experiment and see what comes up for you. If you think you might be addicted to sacral and you want to know what the alternative of that is, all you can do is try. See what comes up. Slowly, you can decondition. Slowly, your awareness can change. These aren't cold turkey quits usually, right? Like, you can't really cold turkey quit sacral energy. Sacral energy is everywhere. But you can stop yourself from seeking it. You can learn to recognize what makes you go look for it, and what aspect of your not self is feeling validated when you do get a hit of that sacral. That's all I gotta say.